Well, we're here to tell Danny's story, his journey to squatting 500 5x5, which happened today, just a couple of hours ago. What time is it?
4:30.
And in 4 hours, maybe a little less, this will all be shut down. But we're here talking about you, Danny, because that's what's important. It was celebrated properly with pizza at the finale, and we may have done a couple of vodka shots to celebrate.
We do it. No.
Yeah, it's kind of uncommon.
We could fake it.
Why?
Cheers.
Cheers.
We're taking the smallest little hit of vodka. Cheers. We're gonna film this drunk.
This is the first time I've ever had a trainee hit 500 for 5 sets of 5. And what we want to do today is talk to you about how things led up to that milestone, where we are today and what our plans are for the future, and what really made the difference for Danny along the way, because we're hoping that lifters who are in the same boat could benefit from some of what Danny has learned and what he's experienced. And we're hoping that this touches many people out there today who might be in a position of, struggling to stay strong during a difficult time like we're experiencing now with the coronavirus outbreak and people having to isolate themselves at home and many businesses shutting down and more importantly, many gyms shutting down. The gym is more than just a place to stay healthy for people. It's also a place for people to stay mentally well, and a place where coaches and trainees get to work together and where trainees get to work on themselves. It's a place where people come to be better humans, stronger humans, and during a difficult time like this, we're very grateful to have the facility we do at Woodmere Fitness Club and the team that we do.
Absolutely.
So we decided we don't know what's going to happen. The governor wants to close down the gyms in the area in the next couple of hours. So today, Danny hit his PR. We're going to talk to you about the journey to this point and also, what his future plans are. So
Absolutely.
we decided that what we were going to do is use Danny's training log from day one and talk about where he started, how he got to this point, and really review his training log, review every lift. So, maybe we could help you make the changes along the way to get to your goals and your milestone. But certainly, I finally have to give him credit.
It's all I ever wanted.
Danny is finally stronger than my grandmother because she was really shy of 500 for 5x5. She really
Pretty strong woman.
She only hit 4 sets at 500, and Danny finally got the 5th today. So it's like a big deal, and so congratulations,
Thank
Danny.
you. That's all I wanted. I don't care about the 500. I just wanted to compliment. Just one compliment. That's it.
He got 1. Okay.
1.
Okay, we're past it. Danny.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where you started in your training before we met, where you were, what you were lifting, and really where you were in your life.
I've done a few powerlifting meets, but I never really got into programming. I read up on starting strength, practical programming, and helped a bit, but without really having like a coach or a mentor there to kind of like teach you all the little things on building up a program personally for you, it was a little hard. And the year leading up to working with Ina was specifically a hard year for me. And I think that's super important for anyone out there watching. If you are going through a tough time, especially now with the whole coronavirus thing going on, hopefully this can serve as a form of motivation for you to like keep going, keep striving, and it'll hopefully get a little better. Like I said, it was a hard year. I had recently lost my job. I had to end up working a job I didn't really like too much. It was security, so my whole sleeping schedule was like messed up. I'd gotten out of a pretty bad relationship also, which you wouldn't think would like mess up like your training, but it really kind of does. And no one but a few of my close friends know this, but my mom got really sick. She ended up having 2 heart attacks within like 2 months. She's doing a lot better now, but all that kind of stuff, that's super stressful. And I came to Ina not having really trained as much, not having a coach, gained a lot of weight, and I was pretty much just depressed, and I had some injuries too that needed to be worked out, and that was our starting point. So it was kind of just like, I had a background in lifting, but she was kind of just helping me get out of a rough time.
You were working for like a Globo gym?
Yeah, a commercial
also
gym, yeah.
Picking up some extra hours and trying to practice the starting strength method, but what were the limitations at your gym?
I am a huge fan of Mark Ripito and starting strength, so I definitely watched a lot of his Ask Rips, especially the ones where people ask questions on working at a commercial gym. And even though I tried anyways, he ended up being correct, obviously. It's just super hard trying to implement this programming to a client at a commercial gym. They really just care about the money and the numbers of clients you're seeing a day. And it's hard to be a good coach at a commercial gym. Equipment's horrible. There are no fractional plates. There's probably 1 or 2 squat racks depending on the gym that you're
Octagonal
at.
plates.
Yep, those are horrible. Not having round plates, especially when you deadlift, having them roll after every rep is
I don't know how
ridiculous.
You guys were doing that.
But the worst one is definitely probably having mirrors in front of you. It's just horrible. It's hard not to look at yourself when you have a mirror in front of yourself. So that was.
So you were training in that space also.
I was training in that space for as long as I could remember, since I was probably 13, and then when I started learning how to lift somewhat correctly, I was still in that kind of environment. So it was pretty bad.
What kind of workouts were you doing on and off?
On and off. It was a mix of powerlifting and a little bit of bodybuilding. I got into kind of heavy 5x5s. I dove into the RPE system for a little bit. None of it honestly compares to having a coach that's there working with you one-on-one, making sure you're eating, sleeping well when you're not training, and just helping you program specifically for you.
What would happen, because we talked a little bit, when you first started, I had to really discuss with you why we were doing the program we were doing, and you had some questions about the RPE. What was your experience doing RPE? Because you did hit some heavy numbers there.
Right. RPE worked a little bit for me. It was probably just because I was untrained, and I think anything I would have done might have helped. But I got into RPEs, and while my experience was, a lot of it was 1 week I might hit a really good PR, a heavy set of 5. And then next week, depending on how I slept and ate throughout the week, I might just come in and it felt super heavy. So I figured this can't be an RPE 8. So even though an RPE 8 last week was 500, the following week was probably 470. And that's kind of how it went. Some weeks would feel really good. Other weeks I would drop the weight 20, 30 pounds. So overall, not super effective. I made some progress with it, but not all that much.
Right. So you did that program. You were doing some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I have always been big into martial arts my whole life, and
Sweet.
I took a little break from that, but now that I got back into it, I started doing jiu-jitsu.
So you were doing a bunch of different programs. You were working as a personal trainer. You were working security. You were doing all this stuff to hustle. And then I called you one day.
Yeah, you did. So I've known Ina for a while now. We've been really good friends. Whenever she had a Deadlift for Dogs meet or any in-house meet, she would hit us up, me and my buddy back in Long Beach, and we would come and compete, hit a few PRs.
And we were setting up for a meet, and Danny had been, one of the most dynamic people at our meets, and we were super excited about having him. And I look at the roster the night before, and I'm like, Danny's not on the roster, what's going on? And, I guess his training was up and down, and he started giving up on it. And I'm like, Danny, you're not in my meet.
Yeah.
You're showing up tomorrow. I don't even want to hear this.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of watching him all along and thinking this guy's on the way up, because he's showing up at our meets, but apparently he was, going backwards in his training, and I didn't know. And
keep in mind, she called me around 9, 10 p.m. the night before the meet, and I think it started at 9 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah. When he shows up at this meet, it was so exciting. You were a maniac. I mean, he's crazy.
It was a fun meet.
It was a fun meet. You had all your friends from Long Beach Strength.
That's very true. I had a huge crowd that came out.
Yeah, shout out to Vinny and Andy and everybody.
Everyone at Long Beach Strength. Yeah, shout out to you guys.
And you guys are so awesome to watch. And you hit a big number in the deadlift, which you didn't expect.
Not at all.
But it was just the energy of the crowd, your friends' support.
Yeah, you have the adrenaline going. This is a good environment to be in.
So what happened? What'd you pull?
I pulled 606, and I like to throw in those like last 6 pounds in there.
He's able to pull 600 with not ideal technique off the ground, and
it
I'm
was bad.
the night before,
It was a bad place.
and I'm thinking this boy's got a lot in the tank and he's got a lot of potential, but I can tell that he needs, coaching, mentoring, and I could tell that he needs some structure to his program and probably, some structure to his life. And if he could do these things, then he would be really, he would see some tremendous results.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes a trainee does not know what they're capable of, and it's really up to the coach to show them and to guide them to a point where they reach their full potential. And I saw it in him, and I saw that he was a talented young man. He's a very sweet young man, and he just...
Come on, man. Do it. Knees and hips together. Yeah.
Don't get too used to it. He just needed somebody to invest in him. So the first thing that we did is, I don't know what happened after the meet.
I think you messaged me on Instagram. You invited me to come in, like literally the next morning after that text. She invited me to come to her groups, and we kind of just did like a testing day. We did the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift all in one day. I thought I had pretty decent form, but
You did. I mean, you really did. But the difference is when you're working with a starting strength coach, we see all the minutia that makes a big difference at heavy weights.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between working with a starting strength coach. We started running your program September.
that's
so,
when that was the very first testing day that we did.
Okay.
And then after that, we sat down and you helped me write a game plan for what I was going to hit in the next few months.
And it happened to be that Danny was really out of work and he was
Yeah.
not in a good place.
No,
and so
not
I
at
said,
all.
listen, instead of, sitting and sulking and letting life really get to you, let's focus on training and on getting stronger, and let's start a proper training regimen so that we can stabilize one part of his life. Because I really believe that if you address your health, your strength, your program, if you maximize your time in the gym and you reach your full potential, it will help make everything else in your life that feels unstable a little bit easier to manage.
100%.
He also started an internship at our affiliate gym, learning about it and helping others learn about it. With
Just made
your
me a
own-
better coach overall.
Yeah.
I thought I was a decent coach beforehand, but now it's like just took me to another level
Yeah.
in terms of
So
coaching.
we've been training Danny and preparing him for the starting strength seminar,
Yeah.
but it also helped your program. So
Yeah, absolutely.
one of the things I want to talk about is how, what numbers we tested at, how we started, and I think the key to this was really how we titrated him in. We sat down with Chris Palladino, starting strength coach, who's also working at our facility, and we had a team meeting, and we decided on, how best to titrate in a proper program so that we're not disrupting too much in his life. And he also had a couple of injuries. So talk about some of the pain you were having that was getting in the way.
I've always had to deal with like knee tendonitis, patellar tendonitis. It always bothered me after doing like a lot of volume with heavy weights on squats. So that's probably been with me forever, until now, obviously. But right before I started working with Ina, really strained something in my glute or my lower back. So I came to Ina with a good amount of pain there.
He was overtrained because he was hopping programs, he's doing a variety of things, and that's part of the problem with people who are running this on their own without the supervision of a starting strength coach. You oftentimes hit a wall. And people enthusiastic like Danny about lifting and fitness, they don't want to have to give anything up, and they're strong enough
No.
to push through, and oftentimes you push yourself into a wall.
First of all, I didn't even know how to like log in a book before. I kind of just always kept it on my phone, or I just try to memorize it. You're never going to memorize it, guys. Just write it down in a notebook. That was probably the biggest change.
Yeah,
As you can see,
perfect.
I clearly don't even know how to like correctly do that. After
So he was taking notes. I don't even know how he was
I don't even
doing
know how I
this,
did
like
that.
up and down and up and down.
But then Ina yelled at me, of course, and
And I yelled at him and sent him the article on how to keep a proper logbook, and then all of a sudden he was keeping it in columns in an organized way.
absolutely.
He had so many technique errors,
Yeah.
and we really didn't want to strip too much weight off the bar, but we decided to strip off just enough to allow him to work on technique. And it's not ideal to have the deadlift to start much smaller than the squat, but that's what the case was because of the pain that he was having.
Yeah.
And the technical errors he was making. So
Yeah.
we adjusted all the weights after the first test day. And I was thinking that we need to titrate him into the Texas method.
Right. So I've tried doing a Texas method before, but every time I tried it, it was just super hard. Like I couldn't get more than like maybe 3 weeks out of it.
How long have we been running 5x5?
Oh man, it's been 19 weeks of running a 5x5, adding 5 pounds every week to that squat.
It took 19 weeks to make a man out of it.
That was 19 weeks of 5x5s, 24 weeks in total actually, not including like, titrating into the actual 5x5.
So the first workout, we made some adjustments
Yes.
to technique and some physical adjustments.
Yes.
So let's talk about what they were.
The biggest change was definitely not having the mirror, so now I needed a place to look at. I was looking a little too low. Actually, I was looking towards my feet, and that was giving me some issues, so we brought my chin and my eye gaze a little higher. I actually kind of had to really learn to focus right before a heavy set. I had to figure out a happy medium in between of getting a little hyped up for a lift, but also a little focus so I could actually listen to your cues and perform that. That was probably the biggest thing, I would say.
Yeah, because
Sure.
Danny had to be pulled back a little bit, but I didn't want to totally burst his bubble, but he would get so jacked up that he couldn't take
I just
any.
couldn't even listen
he couldn't
to
hear
her
me,
cues.
and so the communication between the coach and lifter is really critical, especially during heavy weight. And he had to learn how to concentrate, how to focus on the directions he was being given. So we had to develop that coaching language between us, that common language, and that relationship where he would listen to me, trust me, understand the cues. But also we started to make physical changes, like you had the worst shoes.
So I got those shoes for Christmas. I thought those shoes.
They're very
my first
cute.
pair, and then my first day training with you, and she's like, you gotta change those shoes.
Couldn't stabilize his bottom position because his shoes were too small on him, and he had poor quality shoes. So the lifting shoe is super important.
I had this belt that I borrowed from my buddy who probably weighs 100 pounds less than me. Getting a new belt, that was probably a huge game changer too.
We
Getting a
changed
proper
shoes,
belt for my size.
Belt. I'm sure there were a million other little things, but they were all little things, and I had to really convince you. Also, I had to convince you. You were like, what? This is not good enough?
Absolutely.
And a lot of times you have to explain to lifters the value of proper lifting shoes, what the correct belt should feel like. And those little changes all made an enormous difference
Definitely.
to the way that he felt, the way that he moved, the way he squatted.
But then once that was done, I think the biggest cue on the squat was it's important for a trainee and their coach to have a really good relationship in terms of finding cues that work for your trainee. It's during the squat, I had trouble leaning forward. I didn't realize I wasn't leaning forward as much as I could have.
Different cue that approached the front of the body from a different way, which really focused on his hips, getting his hips back so that the chest could come down a little bit more so
Right.
he can get his hip drive.
Yeah.
That was huge because then he felt, he's also been avoiding sitting into his glutes because he was having so much glute pain.
Sure.
So we did a lot of things where we cleaned up depth, eye position, back angle.
Stance, my stance was it was
Your
pretty
stance.
wide. Things
Cleaning
that-
up some basics.
And it wasn't all in one day either, guys. It was a session here and there. Every week we would see just something new. We recorded almost all of our workouts, almost every set. So that's a huge component in terms of
part of showing him what he was doing, because what he was feeling that he was doing was really different than was actually happening.
Yes.
And he was, so used to working off RPE where something felt heavy and that meant that it was incorrect or that meant that he wasn't capable. So I had to show him how fast the bar speed actually was. And then he would be like, did that move fast? I'm like, this is like a warm-up set, And so, I had to really help him build confidence and help him understand that he was capable of a lot more. And even though things felt heavy, it didn't mean that they weren't possible to be completed. And showing him, giving him that feedback really helped. And little by little, we titrated in to the Texas method. So how did we start?
We started off with 3 sets of 5 and a set of 3, as opposed to jumping right into 5 sets of 5. Which is what I've tried to do in the past, and it just hasn't worked. And then every week on my volume day, where we would work up to this 5 sets of 5, we would just add another rep, 4 sets of 5, and 1 set of 3, and then eventually it led up to 5 sets of 5.
Just titrated up to 5 sets of 5, and then we started to manage the volume a little bit.
For sure.
So yeah, you've got that all recorded now.
Absolutely. As far as program changes go, something as small as changing the days that I trained. So we started off Tuesday, Thursday, Thursdays, Sundays, and we ran that for about like 10 weeks. It ran well. Got really rough with work and stuff, so we had to switch from Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and just that small change.
Enormous difference
Yeah,
to have
I
those
felt
2 days
so
off.
much more refreshed.
Yeah.
Way
Because at the
refreshed.
same time, Danny also entered our apprenticeship program
Yeah.
at the affiliate gym because he's now on his road to becoming a starting strength coach.
Yeah.
And so that required a bunch of time on the gym floor, and he had to make time for it. He had to make some personal sacrifices to start following us at the gym, and he was working with Chris, who was teaching him a lot, and he started to put in more hours at the gym, and so we had to start arranging his training around that and his training around work, and he finally made the decision that he was going all in here. And he became an apprentice, and then eventually he started coaching his own groups.
Yeah.
So as soon
It's
as we
really
went to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, it helped him because
Oh
he
my
had a
gosh,
full
it felt
weekend
so
of
much
recovery.
better. We've been
Yeah.
running it till this day, actually, after
Yeah.
19 weeks. It still
So
works.
once we hit the 5x5, other things had to change in his life. We had to reduce stress in other areas. We had to
Yeah.
increase nutrition and sleep.
Yeah.
And that was really what I found as a coach was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Was getting a 22-year-old to understand the value of recovery because you feel invincible. You are not invincible
Yeah.
under the Texas method.
Yeah, before I started working with Nina, I literally probably never even thought about how much nutrition and sleep had an effect on my training. So shout out to Robert Santana for that nutrition seminar. For sure, everyone that
Yeah,
was
Robert.
there. I learned a lot from that. I learned that I can eat a lot of carbs and still actually lose some body fat while getting super strong.
So today, right before the podcast, he said, I don't even know how much I weigh.
I haven't
been
weighed
on scale."
myself since the summer, since I started working with
So
Nina.
he wasn't
Yeah.
very happy with himself
No, not at
in the
all.
summer, and I try to discourage him from cutting calories during this time because it was going to inhibit his recovery,
Yeah.
and it was just worth him focusing on recovery.
Yeah, we made a deal.
We made a deal, and it's happening.
It did, without even really kind of trying. I'm eating more than I ever have, and I'm stronger than I ever have.
And how much weight did you drop? You didn't even know it.
I think it was, what was it, Dina, like a little over 20 pounds, right? 24 pounds.
So we started this program, and we started, so we finally titrated in the reps and sets.
Yes.
We hit the 5x5, and we started taking 5-pound jumps.
Yes.
Now, I knew that every week that went on, the most important thing would be addressing his recovery and making small technical adjustments to his technique so that we could help clean up his form, so that as the weight got heavier, we were addressing the primary things that were wrong in each movement.
Yes.
So that it would adhere closer to the model. And Danny's going to talk about what some of those form errors were, even just like the minutia that we made adjustments to that made a big deal for him.
I ended up re-injuring an old pec injury I had, and ended up probably having like a micro tear or like some sort of muscle belly tear. I haven't really actually gotten like an MRI done or anything like that. I've just been running thankfully Chris is a PT along with being a starting strength coach, so he kind of helped me with my recovery on that. It's still recovering, but it's definitely a lot better. Luckily, that didn't affect my squat. It wasn't a flexibility issue. It didn't hurt to stretch it out or anything
And wait,
like
let's
that.
tell them why it happened.
I was hoping we could like skip that. but
Tell
no.
them why you should not do what you did.
I wasn't with my coach Ina for one session,
That's
and
not the
I
point.
went back into my old habits of just trying to move the weight. And I definitely let my pride get in the way. Like before even the sets even started, I was already feeling a little like strain, and I probably should have stopped right then and there, but I didn't. And I decided to go for the 3 sets of 5 anyways, and pop.
So that was one bump in the road. But you know what? Something about your bench press that we had a hard time breaking a bad habit was the way you unracked the bar.
Yeah, so again, guys, I trained in a commercial gym my whole life, so I had a bad habit of not being able to unrack the bar correctly. It was a while. It was a while before I was able to finally unrack the bench.
He would like
correctly.
slam it back, and he couldn't
Yeah, I
figure
just
out.
couldn't figure out how to
Every
unrack
time
it
that he would
properly.
try to unrack it, he didn't unrack it up. But we figured out what it was. It was your setup.
Yeah, so again, having like that background in powerlifting, I would see videos of powerlifters doing this arch in their back. It's decreasing the range of motion, so you can move a lot more weight with less, movement. And so I tried mimicking that for a while. My setup just took forever. My heels weren't even planted on the floor. My toes were the only thing touching the floor.
We fixed up the bench technique.
Yep. Then we have my deadlift, which is also another stubborn lift.
Still a work in progress.
Still a work in progress. For my sets, we found that I do have a tendency of dropping my hips a little too bit.
Pushing the bar forward, and also his belt wasn't sitting in the right place.
No, that took a while. That was actually interesting too. I never even realized that. And it was just something as simple as moving the belt up like an inch or two on my stomach, and that was a game changer. But then also for all you bigger dudes out there, also moving my hands a little wider, that created some more space to help, get my knees out of the way. For a while I just wasn't comfortable doing that, and that kind of just messed everything else up. I couldn't get my chest up because of it. But yeah,
we adjusted the belt position, we adjusted his grip, we adjusted your hip position, we adjusted your eye gaze, and the deadlift started moving. But we set it up at 2 sets of 5 because we had to start so far back. We had to add a little bit of volume to his deadlift, and we added it on your heavy squat day. Yeah,
so on my volume 5x5 squat days, that would be considered my intensity or like my PR deadlift day. So I would do a top set of 5 there, and we would add 5 pounds every week there. And Ina was nice enough to drop only 5 pounds of that for my Friday workouts, where
wasn't that heavy.
It gets heavy after a while.
Not yet.
After a while.
So we knew we had to reset his deadlift further back, so we added a set.
Yeah.
And then on his heavy squat day, we kept it to 1 set, and they were very close together because it's far below.
It was relatively light.
Yeah, so we had to make sure that with his back pain and everything and skill set, that we had chosen the right balance there.
But we could change it now, though, right? Now that I'm getting a little stronger.
I know, but we still have work to do.
Oh, yeah, the press. That's still a work.
So he was using the 2.0, but instead of moving his hips, he was using his head.
Yes, I moved my head back a lot. Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out.
It's because of the hair, Danny.
You like the little...
I'm convinced it's the hair. Danny likes to do a hair flip. Do it for them. Go ahead, do it. He was stretching his hips forward. He would also relax his abs and go into overextension in his back, and that would make his back hurt.
Yes.
And we figured out that was causing back pain.
Yeah.
We repositioned the belt a little higher so that he could brace against it, pulled it in a little tighter, taught him to use his abs.
And then a cue that definitely helped me was, like, instead of thinking hips to the wall, we started thinking shins to the wall.
Shins to the wall.
That helped me keep my knees locked in place, not moving my head forward.
Yeah, and then you were like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, I got easy. I finally got up to like the 200s for a few sets and reps. I think it was like 205, 210 for like 3 sets of 5, which I've never done before. And then unfortunately, I was unable to do the 2.0 after the pec injury.
Thanks a lot, Danny, messing up my perfect program.
So I had to start doing some strict presses for a little bit.
All right. So we're still doing some rehab and coming back from that.
Upper body will get there.
Danny was starting to think that I was crazy when I was still pushing this program, but I saw that it was still a matter of recovery, and it wasn't a matter of,
and this is pretty recent too,
lack of strength. Right. We came to a point in the program, I don't remember what the weight was, when you were like, Ina, I'm getting pretty tired. This is getting hard.
Yeah, I would just be so exhausted after these 5x5s. There was definitely something I wasn't doing right. We
came to a point in the program where I realized that we were going to keep making progress, and this young man was going to hit 500 5x5. He was sitting one day after a tough squat workout, and I said, Danny, this is not, he thought the program was running its course.
Yeah, I genuinely thought I was coming to the end of the program. I didn't think we would hit 500 for 5 sets of 5. I thought it'd be more like maybe 3 sets of 5 or something like that.
He kept having a cutoff date in his mind of where it would end. Because really, Danny had no clue of what his potential is. And oftentimes a coach will see the potential in a lifter before they see it in themselves. And it's the job of a coach to help the lifter achieve their goals and maybe even surpass it. Because if you believe in your trainee, then they'll start to believe in themselves. And we had a tough talk, and I said, look, I'm not going to be wasting my time hour after hour, session after session, unless you're going to give it your all, because you have the potential of doing something pretty cool. And when I told him he was going to be hitting these numbers, he thought I was out of my mind. And it took him quite a few weeks to get used to the idea.
And then it just kind of clicked. A lot of people would probably like kill to be in the position that I'm in. discipline to have a starting strength coach commit to being there for your workouts. Andy was my previous coach before Ina, and we still work together. He's one of my best friends. I consider him like a brother. But yeah, those one or two occasions where Ina couldn't be there, she made sure he was there to coach and watch. And then I also had Dina to thank for being there on Fridays, especially on the days where Ina couldn't be there to yell at me and make sure I was okay.
I think that where you really started to realize this was going to be something good is when you hit the 500 the first time.
Yes. So before...
We have video of that, yeah.
Yeah, we have a video of that.
Iraq.
Before 5 sets of 5 at 500, I just wanted to hit that for one set of 5. I've hit 500 before, but it was always for like a single or a double. I've never done anything past that for reps, and when I hit that, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this for 4 more sets.
Yeah, I kind of burst his bubble when I said 505 was next week. He was like, what? This is
I think that was probably one of the first times where I genuinely thought like, there's just no way we can keep going up.
It is something, out of the ordinary, and so I wanted to make sure that if this was going to be the trainee that was capable of it, I wanted to make sure that all the circumstances were correct, from the programming to correcting technique to his recovery. Your education ramped up over time with it.
Absolutely.
So Coach Chris was doing a lot, and
he still is, Now I'm thankful he's running a bunch of tutoring sessions, I'll call it, and he's giving us assignments to do, all of which are based off starting strength on any of the lifts, the physics and biomechanics behind all of the lifts.
It helps you understand.
That genuinely really does help you as a coach. Just watching trainees squat, like you start to kind of see like the angles and things like that.
So he really developed a sense for his own lift and a better eye for his trainees by learning about it. And the more he learned from the book, the more he learned from discussions, and the more he learned from being in our program, it really helped him with his own lifts as well. And so the time started to creep forward, and the team started to cheer him on.
And it went from dreading it for like the whole weekend to like, I just decided that like Mondays are going to be hard, but they probably move a lot quicker than they feel. And in about 30-35 minutes, it'll all be over.
And we'd show him videos all along the way of what each set looked like, how fast the bar path was.
And it was just like, you kind of just do it.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the hardest things physically and mentally that I've had to go through. But when you have a coach, she can teach you how to kind of overcome those hurdles.
We also had a couple of hiccups in the program because you're going to, because at some point the trainee is going to want to do what they want to do, and you're going to try to let them, but hold them back a little.
We were supposed to have a deadlift meet here.
This coming Sunday
Was supposed to be our meet. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus and the whole situation, we have to postpone that competition for a while. But before it was postponed, I had a goal of hitting 700 or just anything over a 600 pounds deadlift, because this is the strongest I've ever been. I've never squatted this much. I've never deadlifted as much as I do now for sets and reps. So my single has to be a lot higher.
And I'm thinking, we're not recovered. We're in the middle of this Texas method, and we're about to hit a peak
so
here.
I figured,
and he wants to pull a PR.
Literally the last week of training, it was right after 495 for 5 sets of 5, and I'm just beat up, and we try on our Friday after a 535 triple on squats.
Bad timing. What are you going to do? You got to let them figure it out themselves.
And I think I worked that morning also. I just finished teaching a boxing class next door, and I decided we decided that I'd try hitting a heavy single before the meet. It didn't happen. Got back into my old habits. I kind of just yanked on the bar. I got into my heel.
That was the hardest part, was like sitting on my hands as a coach, knowing this is probably not the right time for it.
No, it was probably like an impossible thing to try to do.
So he missed it, and in the gym, and we got past it. Today was the big day.
Luckily, it didn't hurt my programming enough to where I couldn't hit the PR today. I know that was a big concern for you.
He's fried, so he's already at the point. I mean, he was just, overreaching when he was trying to pull those heavy singles.
If I didn't try that heavy single, I could probably squeeze out another, like...
Oh, is that right?
If.
Everybody decided that no matter what, move this up and get this done. because it's a very stressful time for everybody who's concerned about being out of work.
Absolutely.
Who are going to be away from their favorite thing that they love doing, which is strength training, barbell training.
A lot of gyms are closing down.
A lot of people are relying on their gyms and their fitness to maintain their health, their mental health, and it was a very special day. And honestly,
it really was.
I think that it did a lot for all of us to have the experience of celebrating with you, and even little Tori was here to see it. Danny did an excellent job, and the difference between this workout and all the other workouts is that he was able to compose himself, to concentrate on the right things in the right moment. He had some beautiful squats, and if he made a mistake and lost balance in it, he was able to correct it, and all the many weeks culminated into this beautiful set.
It was crazy. I'm not one to get like emotional, especially for like things like lifting or anything like that, but I remember after my fourth set, when the timer hit for my fifth one, I was getting all like hyped up to just finish that last set, and I felt like really, like, it was weird. I felt like emotionally, I was like almost tearing up. I'm like, this never happened before. No one really kind of like knows like all the hard work that goes into training for something like that. Only you and your coach really do. So after like 20 weeks of like all that hard work, this is it.
Yeah. And he was surrounded with all his friends. Andy was here for him, and all of our team. And these are the things that we celebrate with our clients. And this isn't just about lifting, folks. This is about all the hardship and all the things you learn and the hard work you put into every session, and working on yourself and achieving a goal. And that moment that you can imagine is going to arrive one day arrives. And it's just as sweet as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, more so.
It was pretty awesome.
It was really good.
And, you know, we wanted to talk about it and sit down. We don't know when we'll be able to get back in the gym again. And it's so incredibly important. And more than ever, the things that the Starting Strength Company and Mark Ripito have taught us and given us really impacted us today, where we can see that we're facing a pandemic. People around us are getting sick. People are fearful, panicking, scared. People are losing their jobs. And the one thing we have is our strength and our ability to take time to train, to
100%.
work on ourselves, to help release stress, to make ourselves stronger, more capable, harder to kill.
Words of Mark Ripito were harder to kill. For sure.
And the barbell's always been there for us. And it's really important to us, and we're thankful for it. And today was a big day, and we're very proud of Danny. And there's so many things we wanted to cover, but we just wanted to share it with you here. And there's lots of videos that you'll see throughout this video. We don't know when this will be seen, and we don't really know where we're going to be by the time the video comes out. We're hoping that everyone around us, the people we love, all of our members are safe and healthy.
But we do know one thing, guys. We'll still be training ourselves. We'll still be working out.
That's for sure. And finally, Danny is finally stronger than my grandma. It's a fact. But, you know, she only hit 4 sets of the 500.
Only 4 sets. Yeah, just
Danny
4 sets.
finally got her. There we are. We passed hands.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you, Ina.
I'm proud of you.
Appreciate it. Couldn't do it without any of you guys. Seriously.
Well, folks, there it is. 500, 5x5 in the tank. Stay tuned for what's next.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
I'm asking why you're so emotional, you know?
I was telling her, it's like, I didn't think I'd be emotional. Like, I had no idea I would be. Just started thinking about, like, I came to her with, like, injuries, I got fired, I didn't have a job, I wasn't training, so I gained a bunch of weight, and I didn't think I would do this. I asked her around the squat. She said 500 for class of the 5. I didn't think that was going to happen, to be honest. It's like crazy to see that happen.
Is it making a man out of you yet?
He's stronger than my grandma.
Well,